Hello there. I've had some really sweet comments about this card, which I posted on Facebook yesterday. It's the simplest of cards, but with a little bit of care, it really has quite an impact. What I used was this Nellie Snellen 3D embossing folder. It's just a bunch of trees. But most embossing folders, for my particular kind of card, which is clean and simple, a whole embossing folder is too much. It's just too much. So I just selected part of it. And the way I coloured it was to use some Stampin' Up! Ink. It's an old one. It's called River Rock, which is a really subtle. It's an odd colour, but I think in this situation it kind of looks quite nice. And I inked the folder using my brayer with this ink, and that's kind of as simple as it gets, really. So I'll just show you what I did with that to start with. So here's my Nellie Snellen tree folder. And inside, the two halves complement each other. This one is debossed for where the trees are, and here the trees are embossed. What I want to achieve is to colour behind the trees, between the trees. So this side, the flattish side with the dents where the trees are, is the side I'm going to add the ink. So I lie it down flat, open up my ink pad. Somebody said to me, how do you get the ink onto the embossing folder without it coming out in little blobs, beading, that kind of stuff? And I think one of the reasons that you can help that happening is, from happening, should I say, is to use a brayer. So if you just lift your brayer and keep going over, you get coverage all around it. If you just do this, just the bit that touches gets the colour on it, and there's probably a little stripe somewhere that's not getting any. So lift your brayer over and over onto the ink pad, and then just rub it onto the embossing folder. I mean, I think if your ink pad is really juicy, that's going to lead slightly more to beading. So if you think you're getting too much on your brayer, you could always just rub your brayer off on a piece of scrap paper first, so you haven't got quite so much on there. It's kind of trial and error for a lot of things to see what will actually work. Now I'm doing it all over. Not that I'm going to use the whole of the embossing folder, but just in case I want to use a different part of it, I'm going to emboss the whole thing so that I've got the choice to do that. Okay. Now this is some of my linen cardstock, and you can choose whichever side you put down to be the one that's going to show. And I'm going to put the actual linen side down. So that's going to go into the folder, and the folder's going to close up. Now, my die cutting machine is a Spellbinder Platinum 6. It says that the embossing plate is this blue one, but this is a 3D embossing folder, so I can't use this one. So I've got to use one of the thinner cutting plates. Let's take that one out. So we've got the base plate, the embossing folder with the card inside, and one of the other thin plates. You may find that even this is too thick. It depends on the 3D folder. But if you find that your thinnest plate, which is one of these clear ones for your Spellbinder Platinum, is still too thick, there is a solution, and it's to do this. You use one of these thin steel shims, to use that as the top plate, and between your base plate, the embossing folder, and this, you can just build layers of card, putting this on the top until you feel the resistance that means that you're going to get that embossed impression. Just that by itself will not be enough probably, but if you add some more layers, a thin one of these, you should be able to manage to do that. That's kind of incidental, but I just thought I'd mention it just in case people are still struggling. Okay, here's my... Now, isn't that beautiful? Isn't that just lovely? Can you see? I like the linen texture on that as well. I've got a little bit more on the side because I think actually my folder was not quite clean from some that I'd used earlier, so I got a double layer there. But what I did for this one was to choose part of this, and I just fold the sink away a moment, and I cut it with my trimmer, which I can't see. Oh, here it is. Right, here's my trimmer. Now I'm going to cut off that top edge, always going towards the band at the bottom, at this end here. Now I'm going to have a bit of the trees. Let me just get this at right angles to that by going round in a logical way. Now this should be, there we are. Might use that for something else. Who knows? There. So this should be at right angles because I've gone round each time putting it against the end. Now to just put this onto a card, it looks all right. It looks all right, but this is kind of a very minimal effect, but it makes quite an impact. I have cut another piece of card just a sliver bigger to mount it on, and it just frames the edge. Let me just cut this one on here from now. Let's have a look. How big do we want it? You can see. Just a little, about there. About there. Okay. And here. Just a sliver. Okay, it's quite enough. And that's about right. There we are. Now, with that glued onto there, I'll put it on the back of here so you can see the effect. Do you see? It just lifts it. And to lift it just a tad more, you can see this is standing a little proud from the card. I put some thin foam tape on the back just to raise it up that little bit. Now, I made the sentiment on the computer, and by going into the colours for the font, for the fonts, I managed to choose a colour that was very, very close to this. It was a little bit guesswork because you can never quite tell how the monitor of your computer deals with colour and how your printer deals with colour, but it looked to me like it was in the same tone value, and when it actually was printed, I was really pleased. I would have done another one if it wasn't quite right, but that made me very pleased. Okay, these two little birds are two of these. These little chaps come from Charlie and Paulschen, which is a German company. So I just ran these through my machine. I'll just do some now, and then we can take a look at them. This is the offcut that I get when I make a square card from a sheet of A4. So all of this is useful for tiny die cuts and mounts for this, that and t'other. Okay, now these are the little birds that you get. And I wanted to have two that were sort of facing each other, although this one's got his head over his shoulder. Somebody thought, I can see what they mean, thought he looked like a dragon, looked like that looked like the dragon's head breathing fire, and this was his body. But made me smile. So, where's the one? This is the one looking over his shoulder. And I had to find somewhere for them to perch. Had to find a little branch, so I'll use this one here. There's one, and I think this was the other. Put them there. And again, to just raise those up a little bit. Just imagine it there. I put the little square of foam tape behind each of those. Back of my desk here, I've got all sorts of dies that I use quite often for cutting out sentiments, and I think I used one of these for that. You can always shorten them if you want to. It's quite easy. One thing I was trying to work out this morning, and not very successfully, is putting a creature or something like that in the woods. But I haven't yet found an ink that I like the contrast of with this river rock background. I don't like it. I'll keep going and I'll see what I can find. But I found a flat, solid stamp of a deer, and I thought he might look rather nice in the woods. But I don't like this. I don't like the colour. It's too harsh. It's blacky blue, and I think this one needs to be a warmer sort of colour. So I'll keep working on that. But anyway, that is how I did it. I'll just go over quickly what we do. Ink the side of the embossing folder where your trees are debossed, so your ink doesn't touch them, so they'll stay white. Pop your card in, run it through, and then if you're making a clean and simple card, just choose a bit of that embossing that would look very, very pretty on your card. There you go. Thanks once more for watching. Really appreciate it.